My name is Talia T. George, and I was 38 years old the night I finally understood where I stood in my own family. It was my mom's birthday dinner, and I arrived carrying a small carved wooden box, the kind that feels heavier than it looks because of what's inside. Not expensive weight, emotional weight, the kind that comes from children trying to be seen. I didn't come late. I didn't come early. I came exactly on time, like I always do, hoping timing might somehow make the difference. Melanie saw me first. My older sister always does. Her eyes flicked to the box in my hands, then rolled so casually it almost looked practiced. She didn't even lower her voice. She never does. You always have to be the emotional one. She said it the way people say facts, not opinions. Like it was already agreed upon by everyone at the table. My mother didn't smile. She didn't ask what the box was. She barely looked at it at all. Her gaze moved from my face to the empty chair at the far end of the table, the one closest to the kitchen door. Set it down and sit over there. That was it. No curiosity, no warmth, no acknowledgement that her grandchildren had spent hours making something just for her. I nodded. I always nod. I set the box down gently in front of her, careful not to slide it too close, careful not to make it look like I expected anything in return. Then I left. Not dramatically. I didn't announce it. I didn't wait to see if anyone would stop me. I just turned, walked past the bar, past the bathrooms, past the hostess stand, and out into the cold night air. Not one person called after me. I drove for 20 minutes before pulling into a gas station parking lot. I sat there with the engine off, staring through the windshield as a couple argued over a scratched lottery ticket near the pumps. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was tired. Tired of thinking maybe this time would be different. Then my phone buzzed. Daniel, my brother. Why did her card get declined at dinner? I didn't answer. Another message followed. Hey, are you okay? Then, where did you go? The tone wasn't concern. It was irritation, like I'd disrupted the evening by existing wrong. An hour later, pounding on my door pulled me out of that fog. When I opened it, my father stood there holding the box like it was something defective he was returning. His jaw was tight. His eyes were already decided. You think this is funny, he said. You gave her a fake card. She tried to pay, and it got declined in front of everyone. I reached for the box without speaking. Inside were Evan's letter and Nora's drawing. The card was gone. I activated it yesterday, I said. $800, full balance. He didn't ask another question. He turned and walked away like he'd been waiting for permission to believe the worst about me. That was the moment. Standing there in my doorway, holding a box half emptied of the only thing they cared about. Not the restaurant, not Melanie's comment, not even my mother's indifference. It was realizing the love my kids poured into that box never even had a chance. The next morning, I called the number on the back of the card. The balance was confirmed. Activated, untouched, no attempts. Not at dinner, not anywhere. They hadn't tried to use it. The lie was easier than the truth. I didn't tell Evan or Nora what happened. Evan kept asking if Grandma liked the part where he called her the cobbler queen. Nora wanted to draw another picture, this time with a cat. I told them we'd talk to Grandma soon, knowing we wouldn't. That afternoon, Daniel texted about the cafe project. They wanted my money, again. I stared at the message, then at the box on the table, and for the first time, I didn't respond. By the time the sun came up, the story had already been written without me. Not the truth, not what happened, but the version they could all share at brunch and nod along to, the version where I was the problem and they were the victims of my little hiccup. I sat at my kitchen table with the gift box in front of me, like evidence. Evan and Nora were still asleep, the house quiet in that fragile way it only gets when you have kids, and you're trying not to wake them with your thoughts. I called the number on the back of the Visa card. I listened to the automated voice. Then I asked to speak to someone because I didn't trust anything anymore, not even a machine. A man named Joel came on the line and confirmed it. Activated. No holds, no flags. I asked him to check attempted transactions. He paused, tapped, then said it cleanly, like a fact that didn't know it was cruel. No, ma'am, no attempts. Not at dinner, not anywhere. I hung up and just stared at the box. The card had never been declined. It had never even been handed to a waiter, which meant the whole scene my father described, the public embarrassment, the fake sympathy, the little moment where everyone looked at me like I was pathetic, none of it happened. They didn't try the card because the card wasn't the point. The point was turning my effort into something shameful. It didn't matter what I brought. It didn't matter what my kids made. They just needed a reason to make me small. I pulled out Evan's letter. He'd rewritten the last line 5 times. You could see the pressure marks in the paper from where he pressed too hard, trying to make it perfect. I love you, even if I don't see you much. That was how he chose to end it, like an 11-year-old, trying to be brave about rejection he still didn't understand. Nora's drawing was there too, her little stick figure garden, her and Grandma planting daffodils with ridiculous smiles and huge eyes. They were so proud. I was proud of them. And my mother didn't even open it at the table. She didn't glance at it later. She didn't call the next day to tell them thank you. She didn't mention it at all because to mention it would mean acknowledging they exist in her heart as something other than an inconvenience attached to me. Evan woke up first and came in rubbing his eyes, hair sticking up, asking the question I had been dreading. Did Grandma like it? Nora followed behind him, still in pajama pants with little stars on them, already holding a marker like she was prepared to fix whatever needed fixing. I can draw another one, she said, this time with a cat. I swallowed and kept my voice gentle. I told them we'd talk to Grandma soon. I told them she probably loved it. I told them what good moms tell their kids when the truth is too sharp for a child's mouth. Then I watched them eat cereal and laugh at something small, and I felt something inside me go quiet and heavy at the same time. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Daniel. Business tone. No apology, no question about why I left. Just momentum, like the previous night was a minor glitch in the schedule. We're going ahead with a cafe launch in October. Dad said you're still in for the capital. The cafe. The family dream they'd been dangling for years like a carrot tied to guilt. A cozy little spot downtown, supposedly inspired by my mom's dream of owning a bakery. Though I couldn't remember the last time she baked anything that didn't come from a box. They wanted me as the main investor. I'd done well the last few years and they knew it. I was the safe bet. Quiet, low maintenance, the one who wouldn't demand credit. They'd get the money, the business, and the photo ops, and I hadn't even wired $1 yet. I was supposed to finalize paperwork next week. I stared at the message and didn't answer. Later that night, a group chat popped up like nothing had happened, like my absence was a missing utensil that didn't matter once dinner was over. Melanie sent it, of course. Thanks everyone for a lovely dinner. Special thanks to Dad for picking up the tab after the little hiccup. Daniel laughed at it. My mom dropped a heart emoji. My dad didn't react at all, because he never needed to. The message itself was the point. A public rewrite, a neat little bow, a way to label me without saying my name. I sat there holding my phone while the box sat open on the table. Nora's drawing was still slightly wrinkled from where it had been shoved around. Evan's letter looked too careful, too earnest, too pure to be sitting in the middle of my kitchen like it was unpaid rent. I stared at Melanie's smiley face for a long time. Then I typed a message to Daniel. Change of plans. I'm pulling out of the cafe project. Something came up. His reply came instantly. What do you mean? You said you were all in. I didn't answer. He called. I watched the screen light up and go dark. Then it lit up again. Then Melanie. Then my mom. None of them left a voicemail. No one asked if I was okay. They just wanted me back on the hook before I had time to think. The text that followed swung fast from confused to passive-aggressive to angry, like a storm moving in. Daniel. You're blowing this up for what? A dinner misunderstanding. Melanie. We can't keep accommodating your emotional episodes. Accommodating. That word sat in my stomach like a stone because it told me what I had always suspected. They saw my presence as something they tolerated, not something they cherished. And they definitely didn't see my kids as theirs. Not really. Not like Melanie's boys, who got sleepovers and birthday parties and fridge photos and that warm, casual love you only give when you don't have to try. I turned my phone face down and kept it that way. And for a few minutes, the silence almost felt like relief. Then it hit me, sharp and cold. They were only calling now because money was involved. Not because I left. Not because my mother dismissed me. Not because my father accused me with no proof. Not because Evan and Nora's gifts were treated like clutter. Money was the only thing that made my existence urgent. And that's when something shifted. Not in them, in me. The next morning, the tone changed again, like they'd all met without me and agreed on a new strategy. Daniel called early, voice calm and upbeat, like we were just catching up over coffee. He didn't mention the card, didn't mention the accusation, didn't mention my leaving. He went straight to selling me the dream. Talia, I was thinking more about the cafe. We really want your input. It should be a full family thing, not just a money thing. Your ideas, your vibe, even the kids, they could have a little corner or something. Make it a real legacy. Legacy. He said it like a reward, like my children needed a corner in a place they were never welcome in the first place. Then Melanie texted, "Totally meant the card thing as a joke. We were just messing around. You know how I get. But seriously, I'd love to use Nora's garden drawing for a mural wall. So cute." I stared at her message until the words started to blur. Nora's drawing had been crumpled at the bottom of the box when I found it. They hadn't even touched it. And now suddenly it was so cute. Suddenly it was useful. Suddenly it could decorate their little dream, as long as the child who drew it stayed quiet in the background. Then my mom called. I let it ring. She called again. I let it ring again. On the third call, she left a voicemail, her voice soft and careful in a way that used to fool me when I was younger. "Talia, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I really don't want things to get blown out of proportion. This cafe is something I've always wanted. Your father and I talked about it last night. We'd love to have your full support, not just financially, but in every way. Call me." She never said Evan's name. She never said Nora's. She didn't mention the letters, the drawing, the earrings, the box, or the fact that her daughter walked out of her birthday dinner and no one followed. It was like my children's love didn't count because it couldn't be deposited or wired. That afternoon, I was outside pulling weeds in the yard, doing something physical just to stop my head from spinning. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. A familiar voice said my name like she was stepping into a room she hadn't entered in years. "Talia, it's Linda." It took me a second to place her. My mom's longtime friend. The one who used to sneak me a second slice of pie when my mom wasn't looking. The one who actually noticed when I sat alone at gatherings. We hadn't talked in years. She didn't waste time. "I just wanted to tell you something you probably already suspect," she said. "They were at brunch yesterday. I was at the table. Your name came up." She hesitated, and I could hear the discomfort in her breath, like she hated being the messenger, but couldn't live with staying quiet. "Melanie said you hadn't sent the money yet, and she said, we just need to keep her sweet until it clears." Then they all started talking about how to make you feel included just long enough. It wasn't subtle, Talia. It was awful. I didn't say much because I didn't have to. The truth landed with that dull finality you feel when something confirms what you've known for years, but hoped wasn't real. Linda's voice softened. "I know I'm probably going to get flack for telling you, but I couldn't sit with that and not say something. You're a good mother. You and your kids deserve better." When the call ended, I went inside, poured a glass of water, and sat at the same kitchen table where Evan's letter still lay open. My phone felt warm in my hand, like it had been alive. I typed a message to Daniel, the cleanest version of the truth I could manage. "I've decided not to be part of the cafe project. I wish you all the best with it." The read receipt appeared within seconds. Then the typing dots. Then they disappeared. 5 minutes later, he called. I didn't answer. Then Melanie. I let it ring. Then my mom again. They were fast. Panic moves faster when money is involved. By nightfall, my dad emailed me. 3 sentences. "This was your mother's dream. You've let everyone down. I hope you're proud." Not a word about the lie. Not a word about the fake declined card story. Not a word about the way they turned my kids' love into a punchline. Just a guilt trip wrapped in entitlement, like my only job in this family was to be useful. I didn't reply. I sat there in the quiet and realized something that scared me because it was so clear. Cutting myself out of their plans wasn't going to end this. It was going to start something. I thought pulling out of the cafe would be the end of it. I thought they'd be angry for a while, send a few guilt-laced messages, maybe freeze me out like they always did when I disappointed them, and then move on. That was how it usually went. They'd punish me with silence until they decided they needed me again. I gave them too much credit. Because this time, I wasn't just disappointing them. I was refusing my role. And when you stop playing the part people assign to you, especially when that part comes with money attached, they don't let it go quietly. The messages kept coming. Faster now, sharper. Daniel first. "This isn't just about you, Talia. You're hurting everyone." Then Melanie. You really need to think about how this affects the kids. Is this the example you want to set? Then my dad, short and blunt like a command. Fix this by Sunday, family meeting. Be there. No one asked if I was okay. No one asked how Evan and Nora were handling any of this. To them, this wasn't about what they'd done. It was about control slipping through their fingers. I ignored the messages. I didn't block them. I just didn't respond. Silence felt like the only boundary they couldn't argue with. What I didn't expect was how quickly they'd move from pressure to punishment. It started small, almost subtle enough to miss. A notification from my bank popped up while I was making lunch. Your business account has been temporarily restricted due to a review. I stared at it, confused, then called immediately. After a long hold and a transfer, a calm voice explained there had been a clerical flag, a question about ownership documentation tied to my LLC. Nothing dramatic, she said. Just a temporary hold until it was cleared up. My stomach dropped. I called my lawyer right after. She dug into it and found the problem fast. Someone had submitted paperwork questioning the legitimacy of my business ownership. Old paperwork. The kind that shouldn't still matter unless someone knew exactly where to look. Daniel's name was still attached to a secondary document from years ago, back when I helped him with a failed property flip. He'd been briefly listed as an associated party. We'd removed him from everything important, but not from everything. I'd forgotten about it. Clearly, he hadn't. My lawyer was calm but direct. This wasn't random, Talia. Someone knew what to file to slow you down. 2 client payments were delayed. I had to make calls, apologize, reshuffle funds. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was personal. It was meant to be. A reminder that they could still reach into my life if they wanted to. That night, Linda called again. I hadn't even said hello before she sighed. I didn't want to get involved anymore, she said. But you should know this. She hesitated, then continued. Melanie's been bragging. She told someone at brunch that if you weren't going to play nice, they'd make it harder for you to breathe financially until you came crawling back. I didn't feel angry when she said it. I didn't feel shocked either. I felt calm in a way that surprised me, like something had finally clicked into place. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was strategy, and it told me exactly who they were willing to be when they didn't get their way. Sunday came, the day of the so-called family meeting. I didn't go. Instead, I sent one message directly to my parents. No drama, no explanation, just truth. I'm not coming. I know what's been said. I know what's been done. I won't play along anymore. You can have your business, your plans, your brunches. From now on, you do it without me and without my kids. We're out. The message showed delivered, not read. Hours passed. Then my mom called. I let it ring. She called again. On the 3rd call, I answered. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was. Her voice was tight, controlled, already angry. If you're choosing this path, then you and your children are no longer part of this family. You walked away. We didn't push you. I said one word. Okay. There was a pause, like she hadn't expected that. Then she added something else, something sharp enough that it took a second to register. We'll be revising things legally. From now on, we recognize only Melanie's children. They are our grandchildren. I didn't argue, I didn't beg, I hung up. I walked into the living room where Evan and Nora were sitting on the floor playing a board game. They looked up at me at the same time, smiling, and I felt my chest tighten because I knew something had just changed forever. I sat down with them, pulled them close. Nora noticed first. She always did. Her face crumpled and she started crying without even knowing why. Evan tried to hold it together, but he couldn't. He leaned into me, shaking, his little hands gripping my shirt like he was afraid I'd disappear. I didn't have answers. I just held them and made a promise to myself, right there on the floor, with their tears soaking into my shoulder. Whatever happened next, I would not let them keep hurting my kids. I thought that would be the end. I thought once they'd said the words out loud, once they'd cut us off, they'd move on. I forgot something important. People who only value you when you're useful never actually let you go. They just look for another way to pull the strings. After that call, I expected silence. I expected the kind of cold, permanent quiet that follows ultimatums, the one where everyone pretends the door was always closed and never mentions the people left on the other side. I told myself that was fine. Silence I could handle. Silence was honest. What I didn't expect was retaliation. It didn't come all at once. It crept in through official-looking emails and neutral-tone notifications, the kind designed to feel accidental. Another alert from my bank arrived 2 days later. Another hold. Another review. My lawyer confirmed what we both already knew. More paperwork had been submitted. More questions raised. Not enough to destroy anything outright, just enough to make everything harder. Delays, stress, disruption. Someone wanted me uncomfortable. I moved money around, reassured clients, worked late into the night after Evan and Nora were asleep. I kept my voice steady during calls, but inside something was hardening. This wasn't about a cafe anymore. It wasn't about misunderstanding or hurt feelings. This was punishment for disobedience. Then the messages started again. Different tone this time. Shorter, more forceful. Daniel. You can't just disappear like this. Melanie. This is getting ugly, and it doesn't have to. My dad. You're making a serious mistake. Then the final one. Fix this by Sunday. Family meeting. Be there. I didn't respond. Sunday came and went like any other day. I made pancakes. Evan helped flip them, proud every time one didn't land on the floor. Nora drew at the table, her feet swinging, humming to herself. We went to the park. We laughed. And for a few hours, it almost felt normal. That night, my mom called again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail this time, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it. If you don't come to this meeting, you're making a choice, and choices have consequences. The next morning, the consequences arrived. An email from my father. Subject line, family boundaries. Inside were 3 clipped paragraphs explaining that, moving forward, certain relationships would be formally redefined. Assets, future plans, and family involvement would reflect those changes. It was written like a policy update. No emotion, no mention of Evan or Nora, just a clean declaration that we were no longer included. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop and sat very still. That afternoon, my lawyer called. We need to lock this down, she said. If they're willing to do this much, they're willing to do more. We started the process of severing every remaining tie, every shared document, every old business connection, every loose thread I'd been too trusting to cut before. I didn't tell the family what I was doing. I didn't warn them. I just moved quietly, deliberately, like someone finally accepting that the fire alarm wasn't a drill. A few days later, the real blow landed. It happened at a charity dinner at Nora's school. I almost didn't go. I was tired, emotionally wrung out, but Nora had been excited all week. She wore her favorite dress and kept reminding me it was a fancy night. Evan held on to the raffle tickets like they were treasure. We were standing near one of the tables when I heard Melanie's voice behind me. There she is. I turned. Melanie stood with my parents, all of them dressed like they were attending a gala instead of a school fundraiser. Her boys were darting around, grabbing cupcakes without asking. My mom didn't look at me. My dad gave a brief nod, the kind you give strangers you recognize but don't want to talk to. Then my dad turned to another parent standing nearby and smiled. These are our grandkids, he said, gesturing to Melanie's children. They're the ones that matter to us. He said it casually, like it was nothing. Evan heard it. I saw it in his shoulders, the way they stiffened like he'd been struck. Nora tightened her grip around my leg and looked up at my mom, waiting, hoping. No one looked back. I didn't say anything. I didn't confront them. I crouched down, told the kids we were leaving, and walked them out to the car. Halfway home, Nora's voice was small. Did we do something wrong? I told her no. I told her none of this was about them, and I meant it. But when we got home, Evan went straight to his room and didn't come out for the rest of the night. That was when I knew. Not hoped, not suspected. Knew. There was no fixing this. No waiting it out. No version of reality where they woke up one day and chose differently. The next morning, I sent one email. Short, clear, final. To be clear, I will not be contributing to the cafe. I will not be revisiting any part of the family business. I no longer wish to be included in future family matters of any kind. Consider this permanent. I didn't wait for replies. I didn't check for read receipts. For the first time, I wasn't bracing for what came next. I was done. I thought once I said the word permanent, they would finally accept it. I thought drawing a clear line, putting it in writing, would be enough to make them stop. I underestimated how people behave when their version of the story is more important than the truth. The silence lasted 3 days. No calls, no texts, no pressure. It almost felt like relief. Then an email arrived from my dad. Subject line. Regarding the estate. I actually laughed when I saw it. A short, humorless sound that surprised me. Inside was a polite, sterile message explaining that they were updating wills and formalizing family boundaries. Melanie and her children would be the primary beneficiaries. There would be no future provisions for what he called unengaged descendants. Unengaged. Like Evan and Nora were a subscription they'd canceled. I read it once, then again, just to be sure. Then I closed my laptop and didn't reply. There was nothing to say. I told myself that was the end, that they'd said what they wanted to say and moved on, satisfied they'd made their position clear. I wanted to believe that because it meant I could finally stop looking over my shoulder. A week later, I learned I was wrong. The next encounter was public, which is how they like to do things when they wanted to assert dominance without confrontation. A local community event, a fundraiser tied to the same school Nora attended. I hadn't known they'd be there. I hadn't even considered it. Why would I? They'd made it clear we weren't family anymore. I was helping Evan with raffle tickets when Melanie's voice cut through the room, sharp and amused. Didn't know they let outsiders in tonight. I turned. Melanie stood with my parents like they were posing for a photo that hadn't been taken yet. Her boys were already tearing into cupcakes again. My mom didn't look at me. My dad smiled politely at someone else. Then he said it, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. These are our grandkids. He motioned to Melanie's children. They're the ones that matter to us. It wasn't said in anger. That was the worst part. It was said like a fact. Evan froze beside me. I felt it before I saw it, the way his body went still. Nora wrapped both arms around my leg and stared up at my mother, her eyes searching for something that never came. I didn't confront them. I didn't correct him. I didn't give them the scene they might have wanted. I knelt, told the kids we were leaving, and walked them out into the night. On the drive home, Nora whispered, "Did we do something wrong?" I told her no. I told her again and again until she stopped asking. But when we got home, Evan went to his room and shut the door. He didn't say a word the rest of the night. That was the moment I stopped hoping. Not for me, for my kids. Hope was no longer harmless. Hope was exposing them to pain I had a responsibility to prevent. The next morning, I sent one final message. No emotion. No explanation. I will not be contributing to the cafe. I will not be involved in any family business or future family matters. Consider this final. I didn't wait. I didn't negotiate. I didn't check responses. I was done explaining myself to people who only listened when money was involved. Weeks passed. Life quieted. Evan and Nora slowly stopped asking about their grandparents. Their drawings changed. Fewer people, more space. Sometimes it was just the three of us and a big sun in the corner. Then, one afternoon, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Handwritten. I opened it expecting bitterness or another attempt at guilt. Inside was a photo. My parents. Melanie. Her children. Sitting in front of a storefront with a coming soon sign. The Garden Cafe. On the back, my mother's handwriting. Sometimes you have to build your dream without the ones who walk away. They didn't have the money. I knew that. I'd seen the numbers. I'd helped build the projections. It wasn't possible unless they found someone else. I made a few quiet calls. Nothing formal, just conversations. One contractor, Greg, called me back. "They're scrambling," he said. "Melanie told me someone from out of town is backing them. Silent partner. But they want it open in 6 weeks. No permits, no zoning. It's all talk." Then Linda called again. "They're telling people you're still involved," she said. "That you're just taking a break but coming back for the opening. They're using your name." That was the moment I understood. They hadn't accepted my exit. They were just buying time, spinning a version of the story where I still belonged to them. So I ended it properly. I contacted a lawyer and removed my name from every remaining legal and business connection, every document, every database. Then I did something else. I agreed to a small interview with the local paper about entrepreneurship and walking away from toxic partnerships. I didn't name names. I didn't mention the cafe, but the message was clear to anyone who knew. A week later, the article ran. I never heard from them again. I didn't expect anything to happen after the article ran. I didn't do it for revenge. I didn't do it to expose anyone. I did it because I needed my name to stand on its own, clean and separate. No longer floating in conversations that used it as leverage. I thought maybe they'd be angry. Maybe they'd lash out one last time. They did neither. Weeks passed without a word. The silence felt different this time. Not tense, not waiting. just empty, like a room after everyone's moved out. Evan and Nora adjusted faster than I expected. Kids always do when adults stop dragging them through uncertainty. They stopped asking when we were going to Grandma's. They stopped checking the driveway when a car slowed down outside. Their world got smaller, but safer. 3 months later, Linda texted me 2 words. It's over. I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. Still, curiosity got the better of me. One afternoon, I drove past the cafe location. The windows were papered over. The sign was gone. The Coming Soon banner hung crooked, edges curled and torn, flapping weakly in the wind. There was no construction noise, no posted permits, no life. It looked exactly like what it was, an idea that never became real. Later, I heard pieces of the story from people who used to be involved. The silent investor had backed out. Apparently, after the article came out, questions were asked, real ones, and the answers didn't hold. There were rumors of unpaid deposits, a contractor threatening legal action, whispers of financial misrepresentation. I didn't chase details. I didn't need them. Then the email came, from my dad. One line, you win. I stared at it for a long time. There was no satisfaction in it. No rush, no sense of victory. Just confirmation. Confirmation that I had never been the problem, that I had been cast as one because it was convenient. I replied with a single word, goodbye. Then I deleted the thread. A week later, I took Evan and Nora to a small coastal town for the weekend. We rented a little place with a fire pit and a view of the water. We ate too much seafood. We stayed up late. One night, Evan sat beside me, poking a marshmallow over the flames. He didn't look at me when he asked, are we ever going to see them again? I watched the fire for a moment, then shook my head. No. He nodded. Okay. Nora leaned against me and fell asleep like that, her head heavy on my shoulder, trusting in a way that felt like forgiveness I didn't deserve, but would spend the rest of my life earning. That was when I understood something I wish I'd learned sooner. Some endings aren't loud. They don't come with apologies or closure or justice served neatly at the table. Some endings are quiet, a door closing, a hand letting go, and the peace that comes when you finally stop hoping it will open again.